What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another Comically Boston breakdown episode, because today we are talking about Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man episodes 3 through 5 breakdowns. So today we are breaking down episode 3, Secret Identity Crisis, episode 4, Hitting the Big Time, and episode 5, The Unicorn Unleashed. And these 3 episodes were really fun, and I'm really digging this show, and I like how they're releasing it. I thought I was gonna not maybe like it and wish that they did it week by week, but I found that the first episode, like, you wanted to see the second episode by the end of the first one, and then by the end of the second one, right, you get a week until this 3 episodes, but then you watch episode 3 and it makes you want to watch 4, and then you watch 4 and it makes you want to watch 5, and by the time 5 ends you're like, ooh, next week's gonna be exciting, right? So it's almost like these 3 chunked together as like an hour and a half animated movie almost is like the chunk that you should be watching it. So I think if you're going to be watching this and you're thinking about binging it after the fact, or, you know, not watching it until later, I would still watch it. 1 and 2, 3, 4, 5, I believe it's 6, 7, 8 next week, and then 9 and 10 the following week, and that's the finale. But let's get right into it. Episode 3 picks up right where we left off, where Norman Osborn finds out that Peter is Spider-Man at the end of episode 2. So that's where the title of Secret Identity Crisis comes in, because Peter's kind of freaking out that someone knows that he's Spider-Man, and he's, you know, hanging out with Nico and playing video games, but he's having trouble focusing, and she's like looking at him like, dude, you just lost, but he hears, you're Spider-Man? And he's like, what? You know, she's like, dude, what's wrong with you? You're not playing games? What's good? And he's like, I don't know, this Osborn internship is really making me lose my mind. And you're like, ooh, I don't know. This is a good thing that he should be working for Norman if Norman knows he's Spider-Man. And I mean, like, ooh, I don't know, it's a little messy. So out of Peter's people that know he's Spider-Man, right now it's just Peter and Norman, right? Like, Nico doesn't know, May doesn't know, like, none of his other friends know, Lonnie or Pearl, like, it's just Pete and Norman, right? So, when he's hanging out with Nico, we see her, like, foster family, and, like, foster parent comes in and is like, oh, your foster brother made a mess in the kitchen, would you help me clean it up? And she goes and helps. But what is Nico's backstory? I've never heard of Nico Minoru before this show, so, you know, maybe the comic book nerds out there, the people that really are into this stuff, comment below, let me know, what is Nico's backstory? Does she have powers or something in the comics? Is that where we're heading with her? If so, that would be really interesting. I find Nico a really cool character, but I don't know all that much about her, so comment below if you know anything about Nico Minoru. Nico asks him to go see a movie, but he says, ah, damn, Mr. Osborn asked me to go to dinner. And so, of course, then we cut over to Peter going to dinner to meet Osborn to talk about him finding out that he's Spider-Man. And Osborn rented out an entire restaurant so that they could have their privacy. And Peter opens up the menus like, oh boy, I'll have a glass of water, right? Because the prices are crazy. And Norman's like, no, eat, please. It's on me. Don't worry about it. So Peter then orders a lot of food and eats. And he's like, I don't know where you're putting all this, but I'm sure you burn quite a bit of calories when you're fighting crime. And then Peter goes, I'm sorry, Mr. Osborn, but the Spider-Man you saw on your security cape, it was just a prank by one of your security team. You know, just a prank. Can't help you, man. I'm not Spider-Man. Norman's like, you would have been better off telling me you're friends with Spider-Man. Like, come on, man. He goes, it's my own security cameras. I'm the only one that has access to it. I know you're Spider-Man. He goes, but your secret's safe with me. And Peter's only real concern with Norman knowing that he's Spider-Man is that he goes, don't tell my Aunt May. She would be so worried sick. And he's like, wow, really? Like, he goes, even when your identity is found out, the only thing you care about is protecting someone else, you know? He goes, you really are a hero. Like, you're such a nice little kid. And then Norman shows him the video of Spider-Man catching that bus and saving a passenger full of bus from a runaway vehicle. And then he talks about, you saved a kid from a car and saved him from getting jumped in an alley. That was my son, Harry. And, you know, so Peter's like, oh shit, that was Harry Osborn? Cool. And Norman says, since that day that Spider-Man saved his son, he's been trying to find Spider-Man to help him. And some of this just feels a little too good to be true. It's like, Norman's not that good a guy. Like, the Norman we know is a Green Goblin villain type. You know, he's not necessarily Iron Man the hero like Tony was. So when Tony showed up and said he wanted to help Peter, we all believed it because Tony's a good guy, right? Like, he is a playboy, dickhead, asshole, but he's not a villain. You know what I mean? Where Norman, in every time we've seen him, has been a villain, right? Like, I don't know. I'm keeping my eyes out on Norman Osborn here. Something might be too good to be true here. Peter says, I don't think I should work at Oscorp anymore because I could put you in danger, the nice people of Oscorp, just for you helping me. And maybe I should do this on my own. And he's like, listen, I can take care of myself. You are more than qualified to work at Oscorp as Peter. You know, regardless of what Spider-Man does, Peter has a bright future. So I insist that you work, but the decision is yours if you want to stay or not. But allow me at least to pay you for your one day. And writes a check for $1,000 for one day. I was like, ooh, scientist money is good. So, you know, that gets in Peter's head. Maybe I should stay at Oscorp, but... Then we cut over to a couple, and a man and a woman, and they have several $1,000s in a duffel bag, and they get a text that says, put the money in the dumpster. She goes, there's just trash in here. We're going to put thousands of dollars in a dumpster? And then they put the money in the dumpster, and the dumpster sprouts legs, shoots like a grappling hook into a wall, and the legs walk up the wall, and the dumpster disappears, and they just get a text, pleasure doing business with you, and you're like, what? Okay. So this, like, inventor guy is doing deliveries of his tech through dumpsters that just get up and walk away. Okay. So they end up getting tech left on the ground, and there's like a symbol on the case that looks like an infinity symbol. We cut back to May in Peter's apartment, and May is getting rid of a bunch of old closet stuff and a bunch of Ben's old stuff for closet space and extra money, but says sometimes you gotta do something even if you don't want to do it. Which I think for May means she's got to move on from Ben, even if she doesn't want to. She can't just keep looking at his stuff and getting sad in the closet. She's got to move on somehow, you know. And I find it just a little funny and weird that we still don't know how Ben died for this Peter or Tom Holland's Peter. But he's just gone. Poor, hot, single Aunt May. But as she's going through the boxes, we see Ben's old bowling shirt, and Peter picks up a camera that was Ben's old camera, and he's like taking pictures on top of a building, and he's like, wow, Ben would freak to see me getting pictures from up here. And then he's shuffling through some old pictures, and he's got old Uncle Ben photos of Pete, and Aunt May was like the only photos that Ben took. Oh man, touching stuff. Really made my heart warm. I was like, oh, Uncle Ben, no. But because, you know, May was saying it could help with rent and money, Peter's thinking about staying on at Oscorp to help May with the money, you know, because he did get $1,000 for one day, you know, so scientists would make pretty damn good money. But Nico is saying to him, like, listen, if May knew you were staying on just to help her with money and you didn't want to actually be there, she would tell you to quit. And he's like, man, I know, this is why it's difficult. Then we cut to lunchtime, and Lonnie offers to buy Peter lunch because they just aced their science test. And Pearl's like, just let him buy you lunch, Pete. Like, come on. And, you know, Pete's just got this $1,000 check that he just got the day before. So he's like, I can afford my own lunch. But he insists, so Lonnie buys him lunch, but then doesn't realize that he bought pizza at the football after party with the boys a couple nights ago, so he's short on money, buys their lunch, and only takes an apple for himself. So Lonnie is just such a good kid. He's like, listen, I'll go hungry. The football star, big athlete that I am, I'll go hungry if it means that my friends are all taken care of, right? Like, Lonnie's just a good all-around dude, and it's a real shame where Lonnie's future might head, you know what I'm saying? But we'll get into that through episode 4 and 5. Because right at this lunch, Lonnie gets a call from his mom and has to rush home, asks Pearl for a ride home, and rushes back. He runs into his house, there's cops out front. Lonnie's mom tells him that his brother Dre was caught vandalizing, spray painting a building with a gang that called themselves the 110th Street Gang. And Lonnie's pissed, and he's like, oh boy. So Lonnie's gonna go find his brother. And Spidey tries to stop that couple robbing a jewelry store, and they both have tech. And I was initially thinking like, is this Oscorp tech? But no, we find out that this is an inventor a different inventor at the end of episode 4. The man of the couple has leg tech that makes him kind of fast, like Flash-esque fast, you know what I mean? And then the woman has wrist tech that has like blades that come out of it, but also is like, you know, strong. We cut over to Lonnie going to find his brother Dre, and he finds them at the 110th Street Gang's hideout and meets Big Donovan, leader of the 110th Street Gang. And Big Don ain't gonna let Dre or Lonnie leave. And Lonnie goes, all right, fuck it. I trade myself for my brother. Let him go, I'll stay. And Big Don's like, yo, that's a hell of a trade up. Okay. And Dre's like, no, you can't. Oh my God, this is my mistake. What are you doing? And he's like, go home, Dre. And so Dre has to walk up out of there as Lonnie has to take his place in this gang. And he's like a good kid. Like, Lonnie's not a gang member. Like, this is so bad. We cut back to Spidey fighting with that tech-powered couple, and he gets kicked pretty hard into a bus. He's like kind of knocked out on like a cab windshield, and he just kind of looks at the cab and goes, hospital please, you know. But at that same time, Osborn hacks into Peter's comms in his suit, and he's like, Spider-Man. He's like, God, it's me, Spidey. You know, like, the voice of Spidey, it has the quips, right? Like this Spider-Man has all the quips. He's so funny. But Osborn gives Peter some pointers on how to beat the tech, you know, people, and, you know, there's a signal coming from their tech, it has to be, you know, and so now Peter has the advantage on them and ends up webbing them together, and they end up like the circuits between the two techs like start interacting, they get like electrocuted, they end up getting arrested. But Peter notices that the fire guy from the last episode and these tech couple have the same infinity symbol on the tech. So who is this infinity symbol? Norman's also looking at this logo of the infinity symbol on his computer, and it almost looks like he knows who it is. But Peter scares the crap out of him because he's Spider-Man on the ceiling, and Norman's like, God, Jesus Christ, you can't just scare me like that. He's like, yeah, my bad. But Peter realizes, hey, it looks like I did need some help out there, and, you know, maybe I could use somebody in my corner. So he shakes Norman's hand and says, welcome to the team, meaning welcome to Team Spider-Man. And yeah, so it's Norman and Peter, man, and Peter's gonna get some help from Norman, kind of like, you know, Tony Stark helping out Peter for Tom Holland. Then as he's shaking the hand of Mr. Osborn, we cut to Lonnie shaking the hand of Big Donovan and says, welcome to the 110th Street Gang, and that's where the credits roll on episode 3. Crazy, but let's roll right into episode 4. Episode 4, hitting the big time, starts with Peter giving a project, you know, speech, presentation type of thing for his magnetic generator project with Carla Connors, Dr. Connors, and Dr. Whitman, the old Scroogey dude, is giving them a hard time and giving Peter a hard time for how he's talking, and he goes, you gotta be the loudest person in the room, you gotta be able to speak up for yourself. And he's like, kind of like, you're the loudest voice in the room. Dr. Whitman's like, fuck you. But as he's giving this presentation, Mr. Osborn calls for Peter to his office, and Norman has the Sokovia Accords on his TV, and Peter asks about it. So at this moment in time where Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is set, it's set during the Civil War Captain America days, where Iron Man is versus Captain America, and I love how they have their like art of their suits kind of looks like comic book accurate in a way, and the colors look good. But you know, Sokovia Accords going on, and Peter's like, is this going to affect me? But this Peter is with Norman, so he's like not going to Germany to help fight on Team Iron Man, you know what I mean, like Tom Holland did. So, you know, it's just funny how different and like similar but different these characters are. Norman already has a suit ready for Peter that is kind of Thor-esque, Peter says. And he's like, I'm not Thor. And he goes, just try it out. It's heroic. This is going to be nice. This should be a big suit for you. And so he tries it out. And this one has a cape. And he's like, you know, fighting the guy. And it doesn't look very good. But it has a cape. And he jumps down and the cape gets caught and tangled up. And he ends up getting beaten with bats like a piñata. And And he's like, yeah, I'm gonna have to see some other options. Meanwhile, Lonnie is waiting for Pearl and brings her a rose to thank her for giving him a ride home the other day. But Lonnie doesn't open up to Pearl so much about, Big Don and what's been happening and why he had to rush home the other day, right? So she knows he's not telling her the whole story and being honest and open. So she is kind of like, what's your deal, dude? What's happening here? And he's just kind of like trying to deal with the 110th Street gang and Big Don, and he's just like, poor guy. Pearl offers to give him a ride home and goes, nah, sorry, I gotta go run some more errands. But Big Don is those errands, and he's calling him saying, get back here, you're on the clock. And he's like, man, I got football practice, what the fuck? And he's like, I forgot, I'm sorry, I missed the part where that's my problem. And I was like, instantly, the internet was blowing up with this stuff, because there's little lines like, obviously Big Don isn't in Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man back from, 2002 or whatever. But this is 100% a nod to Tobey Maguire's line in that movie, I forgot the part with that's my problem. And the guy, steals the money, and you know. If you're a Spider-Man fan and you're watching this, you know. And if you don't know, fucking go watch Tobey Maguire's Spider-Man. What are you doing? You're fucking up. Peter then tries out his next suit, and this one is a Hornet suit, has wings and rocket blasters or stinger blasters from the wrists instead of webs. And Norman's like, listen, you should be Spider-Man is a real tiny niche. You should be open to your identity changing and being a different type of hero. But no, Peter is Spider-Man. He needs to be Spider-Man. And Hornet Man, or whatever this costume, doesn't work. He gets smushed on a bus windshield like a bug. Gets windshield wipered off the bus windshield and goes, next please. Cutting over to the 110 Street Gang hideout. Lonnie is sitting there doing homework, and Big Don's like, throws his book and is like, fucking, this isn't a fucking daycare, do homework, motherfucker, like that type of bullshit. And Lonnie kind of gets an attitude, goes, not like anyone's doing anything around here anyways. And he goes, oh, this big superstar wants something to do? Go get food over at this place in a different territory. So, Big Don's pretty much sending Lonnie into a trap here. We cut over to Peter trying yet another suit, and this one is a black and gray winged suit, and it's kind of like a little horror scene for a second. A girl loses her balloon, and it flies up into a tree, and we just see a black and gray figure fly in, claws scrape a tree, and then hop out, and it's like, dun, dun, it's got ominous music, and then he's like, here's your balloon, and she's like, ah, scares the poor little girl, starts crying. Oh man, he's like, yeah, I don't know if this one's gonna look good. This one's scary. And Norman's like, what if we put a smiley face on the suit? He goes, that would be creepier. So Peter goes back to Norman like, yeah, we're gonna need to do something else. This suit ain't working, man. And so Norman has to, brace maybe you're right. These aren't the right suits. You're Spider-Man. But then we cut over to Lonnie getting big dogged at the fucking food spot. And this is obviously rival gang members' spot. And this girl, this big scary girl, it looks at him and goes, tell Big Donovan we'll be coming for him. And he's like, okay. And then he gets followed out of the store, and Lonnie takes off running and makes it to the train and escapes from the guy. And as he gets on the train, he's like, fuck, that could have been bad. I was chased down by gang members. He punches the bus. Lonnie's so pissed he's in this situation, but he's got to do what he's got to do. He goes back to the 110 Street Gang hideout, and Big Don tells him that, you bumped into Camilla Black and the Scorpions, Mac Gargan gang. Mac Gargan being the Scorpion, and we don't see him yet as the actual green suited with the Scorpion pincer. We don't see him as the Scorpion yet, but his gang is the Scorpions. Yeah, Mac Gargan's a crazy motherfucker. 2 different colored eyes, crazy back tattoo, crazy arm, neck tattoo of a scorpion, right? He fights other gangs for sport, he's a bad dude. Big Don tells Lonnie, you gotta wake up. Scorpions would be on your front door if it wasn't for 110 Street Gang. This is always going to be your problem, whether you with us or not, and Lonnie's like, fuck, he's kind of got a point, so Lonnie's got to work with him. And then Norman and Pete talk about the need for a hero since the Avengers invasion, right, meaning Avengers 1. And then he talks about, the need for a hero. What if a gamma-fueled rage or an AI wipes out Sokovia that you created, and meaning Age of Ultron, meaning Tony created Ultron, which is correct. But, just interesting that they're referencing these things, that they also happened in this universe, even though this Peter isn't at Captain America Civil War in Germany. he's back in New York with Norman, you know what I'm saying? So different but similar. Sam, but different. So Norman has one final suit for Peter, and he pulls out this case and he starts swinging off, and it's a white and blue with red accents Oscorp suit, and this one actually looks really good. I love the little red details on the belt, and the bottom of the shoe is red. You know, like the red bottom shoes always look good. But as he's, you know, swinging around the suit looking for action in New York, he's like, it seems quiet out here. Norman's like, there's always something going on in New York. And he's right, because 4 robbers in a van cause a huge pileup as they're speeding away from a robbery, and they robbed a bank or something, a bunch of cash and bags. They cause a huge car pileup and a big explosion, and fires happening, and a bunch of civilians are now in this crash. So Peter and Spidey decide to go save the people in the crash rather than chasing after the robbers. The robbers end up getting led on a high speed, leading the cops on a high speed chase, and they end up, you know, getting caught and crashing out and, you know, getting arrested by the cops. But one of the 4 robbers in the van is a wild card named Mila, and she friggin' busts out the back of the van and goes, I will come find you, I will take the money to the inventor. And so 3 of them get arrested. This one girl runs off to go meet the inventor, whoever that could be. Ooh. The new spider suit, we find out, is fireproof. Peter saves all the people, and then Peter goes back to Oscorp, and Norman hasn't been answering him. That's because Norman is having dinner or a meeting with his son in his office, and Peter walks through the back door, is like, yo, this is the one, man. I think this suit's awesome. And all of a sudden Peter's like, what the, or Harry's like, what the fuck, you're Spider-Man? And he's like, no. And he's like trying to cover the Spider-Man suit that he's clearly wearing. So now Norman and Harry know that Peter is Spider-Man. But then this episode ends with that one girl, Mila, that made off with the money from the robbers. And her name is Mila Mazarik. And she goes to the inventor, and we find out that it is a comic book accurate Dr. Octavius. And that infinity symbol is a double O, Otto Octavius. So if you guys knew, you knew. And me, I was like, infinity symbol, you know, I was thinking to infinity, you know, like, but that's kind of cool. If you're an OO name, you put those together, it makes an infinity symbol. See that? Nice. The look of Doc Ock is awesome. I love how he's like, you know, got the blue like in the glasses. It just looks so good, and the art style is so perfect. But there's one more episode here out of the 3, and that is titled Episode 5, The Unicorn Unleashed, and we open right where we left off, and the girl Mila is asking for more tech from Dr. Octavius, and he gives her a mask that shoots lasers. And he goes, read the instructions if you have any questions. And as she's walking out, she just throws the instructions in the trash. And Octavius is just like, all these people are beneath me. My name should be held in a higher regard than Stark, Banner, or Osborn. And his little assistant's like, it will be, sir. We're almost there. And he's like, Arr. So clearly, Dr. Ock here has a big thing he's planning, you know, and he's planning something big. So maybe we'll see by the end of this series full Doc Ock with the octopus arms coming out of the back, you know what I'm saying? We then cut over to Harry had just found out that Peter's Spider-Man. It seems Norman went, Harry, why don't we all go home and sleep on this and we'll meet here in the morning, which just seems weird also. Why wouldn't you just have that conversation right then and there? But the next morning, Harry and Peter are sitting across the table from each other, not talking. Norman walks in and goes, I've been thinking about this, Peter. Harry should join Team Spider-Man and be your... And Harry's like, the dude at the desk! We're all immediately dying laughing because we think of Ned Leeds, Tom Holland's guy in the chair. But no, he can't. Harry can't be a guy in the chair. He's the dude at the desk. That's how they're different. That's these two Spider-Mans are completely different people. One of them has a guy in the chair. One of them has a dude at the desk. Duh. So Harry is a part of Team Spider-Man now, and Peter goes, I'm gonna be late for school. Harry goes, you need a ride? So Harry gets a ride from school from social media famous Harry Osborn, and Nico's like, dude, when are you gonna tell me that you've been hanging out with Harry Osborn? He goes, I didn't think it was important. Why would I? You know, like, I just know him as Norman Osborn's son. And, you know, Nico shows him that he has got hundreds of thousands of followers on social media, and that he's a famous person and a tech billionaire's heir to the empire type of thing, so everyone wants to know what his deal is. And yeah, but Harry is famous, but he's also kind of just a lonely kid because he's homeschooled by the best teachers money can buy by Norman. So Harry's not, stuck up or anything like that. He's just in the situation he is. He's getting people messaging him in DMs. How'd you get rich? And he goes, not a very long conversation when you just have to message back, I was born. Is it his fault? Is it Norman's fault? Kind of. Lonnie's coach gives Lonnie a hard time and just wants to make sure that Lonnie's head's on straight. Like, son, you could go pro. I can't justify that you've been missing practice for a week. And he's been missing school for a week as well. And Pearl and Pete have been covering for him in classes saying, hey, we told him that you have bronchitis if they ask. And then Pete is walking out of school with Nico, and he gets tickets for him and her at a 7 o'clock showing to go see that movie that Nico was talking about back at the beginning of episode 3, I believe, right? So I just like that through this little 3-episode arc, by the time we're at the end of this 3-episode arc, we're getting kind of resolution on Peter, like, hey, I do want to hang out with Nico and be a better friend, a better kid, and not just Spider-Man, and that's the only thing he's thinking about. And I do kind of like Peter and Nico. I don't know if they'll be ever dating or if they'll just be friends, but I do fuck with them two together. Lonnie's about to go to football practice, and he gets a call from Big Don, and Big Don's like, yo, we need you right now. And he's like, listen, what are you talking about? I'm not going to be able to get over to Harlem, and fucking it's going to take hours. And he's like, yeah, that's because I sent a car over there right now. He goes, you better go out to them before I send them in to get you. So he's got to miss practice again. So poor Lonnie's going to get kicked off the team. He's the captain of the team. He was going to go pro, and these friggin' gang members just pulling him into this bullshit, man. Poor Lonnie. But so the boys gotta go get friggin' Lonnie. And I love the guy in the passenger seat here in the orange. I believe that's Big E voicing him from WWE Wrestling. I want to know who's voicing Big Don, though. His voice sounds so familiar, and I wanted to look it up, but I'm like, no, by the end of the series, I'm gonna pinpoint who it is, I promise. Or I'll cave and look it up. But I could hear it. I'm like, oh, who is Big Don? I could hear that voice. But I think the guy in the orange is Big E. We then cut to Peter putting on the suit right after school, going to clock in as Spider-Man now after a long day of school. And the moment he puts on the suit, he starts climbing the wall. Harry has been waiting for Peter to put on the suit so he could talk to him on comms. And Peter falls. He's like, have you been waiting this whole time? He's like, I'm not gonna lie to you. Yes. And then they both start to talk, and he's like, don't you have millions of followers to follow? And that's where they have that conversation. And then they both think that the suit, the white and blue and with red accent suit, should have some more color in it and some more reds and blues like Captain America. And they both say it at the same time. They're both Capped fans. I'm a big Cap fan. But they're both big Captain America fans. And then they kind of talk about the Civil War going on right now between Iron Man and Cap and which side they're on. And he goes, most people aren't Cap fans right now. He goes, but yeah, Cap's my god. And then Harry goes, oh, I thought Cap's been a clone this whole time. And he's been fighting Iron Man at the airport battle in Civil War. And so Harry thinks that his Captain America's a clone. Interesting. The real Cap died 4 years previous, but this is a clone Cap? I'm not sure if it's true, but it's interesting. Then we cut over to Mila, the lady that bought the tech from Doc Ock, and now she's going by the Unicorn because the helmet kind of has like a little point on it, and they're like, you look like the Rhino, and she goes, no, I'm more like a unicorn. And so she is the Unicorn. That's where the title of this episode comes in, The Unicorn Unleashed. Miss Unicorn here busts out her other 3 robbers from jail. And then the Spider-Man has to come in and fight the Unicorn. And the Unicorn here, I mean, she is a jacked super athlete woman with a giant mohawk, which is cool. But she's, shooting tech out of this helmet and shooting laser beams. But so she starts hitting Spider-Man, and Spider-Man's down, and she's like, is that all you got, little spider? And he's like, I'm just getting started. And I was like, oh, that's kind of like Cap's, I could do this all day. And then you're like, fuck, man, Peter really is inspired by Cap and really loves Cap. 2 New York boys, superheroes. We then cut over to Lonnie in the 110 Street game showing up, and they gotta fight Gargan for their turf. And Gargan and the Scorpions, they're not expecting anything but a fight here, so they're ready to go, and they just want to fight. So a big gang fight goes down for Lonnie while Peter's fighting the Unicorn, so they're both fighting at the same time. the unicorn shoots a big old laser blast at her friend Mikael, the big driver friend, and Spider-Man jumps in front of the blast and takes the blast for him. And Lonnie then, cutting back over to him in the gang fight, Lonnie sees Matt Gargan going in to friggin' stab Big Don with a knife, and Lonnie tackles Gargan, this freaking scorpion, this crazy psycho, tackles him, takes a knife to the shoulder for Big Don. I was like, oh, big hit stick, what's good? You know, like, there's that football paying off, son. Big tackle, takes a stab to the shoulder. Poor Lonnie. I was like, oh no. Then Lonnie, right, like, pulls the knife out of her shoulder, throws it on the ground, I think. And then Gargan, like, gets on top of him and, like, has a knife, like, he's about to slice Lonnie's neck or something. And then the cops show up, so they all gotta run. And it's like, oh shit. But then we cut over to the unicorn and Peter still fighting, and the unicorn's friend is pissed, like, what were you thinking? I would have been dead if not for the bug. And the big guy, Mikael, saves Spidey from a KO shot, right? So the unicorn's about to, like, you know, power up and shoot Peter right in the face from point blank, you know, definitely could cause death or serious damage for Peter here. And the big guy takes off the helmet and saves Peter, pretty much just because Peter had just saved him. And, you know, then Peter's able to web up the unicorn and take her down. And it's like, woof. And Peter goes to, like, thank Mikael, and he's like, listen, I might, just because I saved you does not mean we are friends. Do not talk to me as if we are friends. We are even, but not friends. If you ever cross my path again, and you will be unfortunate. I will squash you like the bug you are. You know, and you're like, oh, don't cross his path again. Big, scary dude. But so Peter finishes this battle with the unicorn. He's kind of wiped out, and Harry's like, dude, you're fighting crime. Yeah, you could come back to the office and take a nap on my dad's couch. You're doing all this after a day of school. I'm exhausted. I'm just sitting here watching you do it. And, you know, and he's like, how do you do this? And he goes, you know, it's hard sometimes. I forget things that are important, or school, or I'm late for things. And he's like, oh God, I'm late for a movie with my friend. And so he rushes over to get to a movie with Nico, right? And the movie was at 7. Nico's standing outside at 7. It's 7:01. Peter runs up, so he's only about a minute late. But Peter runs up, and Nico, he rushes over to her, and it's kind of a date night, kind of a movie date night for Nico and Peter. But Peter invited Harry because it seemed like Harry was going to be having a lonely night at home by himself. And Nico's like okay with this, but she's kind of shocked at first to see him. Harry like reaches out his hand to shake her hand, and he's like, okay, I'm hungry, I'll see you at concessions. And Pete's like, oh, it's okay, I invited him, right? I'm sorry. And she's like, okay. Nico seems a bit let down, you know, that it's not just a date night between her and Peter, or just them hanging out. And now she's got to tack on this Harry Osborn figure. And then she like kind of, they walk inside, and she like kind of talks to her purple necklace. Am I onto anything there? Is that something? Is she talking to somebody there? Or is she just talking to herself and I'm overthinking it? Just the way I saw it, I was like, what's the deal there? But then we cut over to Lonnie, and he gets brought into Big Don in the 110th Street gang, and Big Don starts hyping him up like, oh, yo, man, you tackled his ass, you got stabbed like a whoopee cushion, man, or whatever he calls it. But, you know, Lonnie took a knife to the shoulder for Big Don. He goes, man, that showed some real loyalty right there. So Lonnie is officially a part of the 110th Street gang after, you know, showing that he'll fight for the 110 in his neighborhood rather than the Scorpions. And Lonnie's like, all right, I'll be a part of the gang, whatever, but you gotta stop calling me superstar, man. I hate that shit. And one of the guys is like, man, we could call you Gravedigger the way you planted Gargan in the ground. And Big Don's like, nah, we should call you Tombstone. And it's like, oh man. Lonnie's like, all right, yeah, I can't lie, I kind of like it. And that's where the credits end. In Lonnie's Tombstone's origins. And you're like, fuck, damn it. Like, but my questions from these 3 episodes and this breakdown as we wrap it up here. As the credits roll on episode 5, where do we see episode 6 heading? I think Daredevil is next week, so that's exciting stuff. But we also have 3 episodes coming next week. Comment below, would you like me to do 3 episodes again, breakdown like I did this one, or should I separate them into their own individual breakdowns? Comment below which you would like. But what is the deal with Norman Osborn and Harry Osborn? It seems a little too good to be true, right? Like, it seems like this was Norman's plan rather than a mistake, you know? Like, oh, It just happened, here we are, now we're working together. Like, it feels like Norman was like, I want to work with Spider-Man and get to know him and his weaknesses so then I can kill him or something, you know? But it's such a bummer to see that Lonnie's such a good kid and he was getting A's in class and he was doing great for the football team, potentially going to go pro. Oh, like, and now he's cutting class and missing practice and the 110th Street Gang, and now his name's Tombstone, his younger brother Dre. All because of his younger brother Dre, right? Like, his brother Dre better be the next Tom Brady for what his brother's doing for his mistakes. You know what I'm saying? Like, I was, by the end of these 3 episodes, the only thing on my mind, I was like, that brother Dre. All this happened because that brother Dre wanted to be cool and hang out with the gang and spray paint, be a bad kid. His brother Dre was not a criminal, was not a gang member, was not cool, you know? Like, poor Lonnie. But comment below, who's your favorite character? I mean, it's got to be Lonnie for me, but I'm now fond of Harry, and Pete. This Spider-Man's really great. Nico's awesome. Another great 3 episodes. So we got 3 episodes next week, but 2 weeks remaining of Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. So comment below your thoughts, and if you'd like to follow me on my other social medias, links down in the description below. Big Cam, 2 G's in the Big, pretty much anywhere you can find me. If you'd like to support me and the channel, the best way to do that, liking this video, commenting down below, subscribing if you have not already. Only about 2.6% of you are subscribed. About 20% of you are women, though. What's up, ladies? How we doing? How you doing, girl? I see you. Comment below your thoughts on Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, or message me on my other social medias, and I will see you beautiful people in the next one. Peace.